Today is I am HIV positive. Believe it or not, would you know that walking down the street? Could you see me and say, you're HIV positive? That's the point. You can't tell these days because, a lot has changed since the 1980s when HIV and AIDS really, the outbreak. They knew about it ahead of time, but they gave it a name in 1980. And, that was the time. It was the medieval times of the disease, where people you get it, a few years later you get sick. I mean, it's HIV, which progresses into AIDS. And then with AIDS, they really didn't know how to treat it, so people were dying left and right. It was a plague. I need to tell you a little bit of a story. I'm going to spend a little time here kind of giving you my rundown, me as an individual, how I got the disease. I'm unique. I am a heterosexual. I say that because there are a lot of homosexuals, but it's not a homosexual disease. It's an everybody disease. Okay? So, got a little unorganized here. Sorry about that. Okay, so I was born here in Long Beach. I am a Long Beach native. I grew up perfectly normal. Had a great mom. My dad and my mom divorced when I was young, but still I had both of them in my life. There was no problem, with everything. I had great Christmases, great birthdays. I mean, my mom really took good care of us, and my dad was again there to support us. Things went awry when I was 10 years old, and my mother, who had been dating many, many men, she liked men. Well, she dated many men, but none of them stuck, so that was cool because we got all these cool guys hanging out that we got to talk to and learn from. But it was the day that this certain man came into her life. She met him, she brought him over to meet us, and I hated him within 3 seconds. Couldn't stand the guy. I could smell kid hater all over him, and he was a kid hater. He wanted my mother. He didn't want the baggage, and that was my brother and I. So my brother and me and my brother. I get that wrong all the time. And I've got a dad who corrects me constantly, so it makes me feel like an idiot. And thanks, Dad. So when that happened, he convinced my mother that they were going to fly all around the world because he owned an airplane. They were going to do all this wonderful stuff, and it would just be not good to have to drag my brother and I with them, to put me in school here, there. They were talking about Europe, Italy, Texas for some reason. I don't know. They were going to live in all these places. I don't know what Texas was all about, but the point was that he had convinced her that I and my brother were going to suffer for this. So it would be best if we move in with my father. Now, I saw my father at this point on the summers only. And my father is a very self-absorbed man, meaning that when I was younger, he said, you had nothing interesting to say. So he didn't talk to me for the first 10, 15 years of my life. But when he did start talking, it was not the nicest talk, because when I had moved over to my father's, I was traumatized. That's a big deal, because it happened in a 2-week period. I was told at the beginning of Christmas break that I'm going to move, and within 2 weeks I was moved. I'm in a new city, which was in Orange County, Fountain Valley. I was going to a new school. I had to start up right after Christmas vacation was over. And, it was all new to me. And I did not know. I was born and pretty much lived with my mom to where it was Torrance and these other places. I knew I didn't have to learn how to make friends. I didn't have to do any of that crap. I was just, I grew up with it. So now here I am trying to make friends, trying to learn a new way. It was really hard on me. That was at the age of 10. So by 12 years old, I was starting to do drugs and alcohol. My first drug of choice was alcohol. That was honest. Yeah, I had a great time drinking at the age of 12. Caught my room on fire, ran my dad over in a car. I did a few interesting things. I was a hellion. That was just the way that my life was. So my dad kind of put up with it. He tried to discipline me. I think he hit me in the head with a frying pan once. But that didn't work. None of that worked. So he just kind of threw up his hands and said, whatever. I didn't do well in high school because I didn't want to be there. So I joined the Army at 17. Problem is, I did not know then what I know now, which is that I'm bipolar. highs and lows. So I took me with me, and that destroyed my military career. I came back. Now my dad sold the house. Now I'm living with my mother and the man who hates me. And I mean, God, he hates me. He started liking me a little bit more when I joined the Army because he was a military man himself. But when I came home, what he considered a failure after 6 months, he treated me like garbage. Now I'm 18. I stopped caring. I just went about my life. I got a job. I living in that house. And I didn't have to take his crap anymore. I was too old. I just ignored him. I mean, if I told you all the stories, if I had 3 hours to tell you all the stories, you'd understand how awful this man was. Now, I kind of tried to pull it together. I tried to be a grown-up. I casually drank. I casually smoked pot. I casually did cocaine. I casually did just about everything. My brother was a cocaine dealer. He was 3 years older than I was. Warning to anybody, you start casually doing these things and then something traumatic happens in your life, it will catapult you into severe drug use. And that's exactly what happened for me. I did not know that my mother was depressed. I knew that she was depressed and she acted odd at times, but, she also at the time, because it was 1989, she was an undiagnosed bipolar. It runs in the family. So she was depressed, and all of these things were going on, and she started giving signs that I did not pick up on. So I go to work one day. I come back from work to find out that my mother killed herself. So I thought that I could handle it. Actually all that stuff my mom was doing was preparing me for this. She had this planned out for a long time. So I figured I can handle it. I was wrong. My drug and alcohol use increased steadily. And by the time I was 20, I was in a bar. Of course, I was 20, but I got into bars. I got into bars since I was like 15. So I'm hanging out in this bar, and I meet this redhead. And it's true. Do you have any redheads in the room? I don't want to insult anybody. It's absolutely true what they say about redheads. They're nuts. First time that we went out, she robbed a gas station. We went in to get a pack of cigarettes, and this is back when they actually had full serve. And the guy had to run out and help somebody. He said, "Can you hold on 1 minute?" Sure. He runs out the door. She immediately jumps over the counter, starts punching in the buttons. Thing opens. She started taking out cash. The alarm's going off. The guy's coming back. I'm literally pissing my pants, going, okay. She got the alarm off, made it right back over. He came in. Okay, how can I help you? She bought a pack of cigarettes. He took it and gave her change. And I just went, I'm in love. I was absolutely in love at that point. What I didn't know, but I found out rather quickly, was that she was a heroin addict. She was embarrassed about it, but I told her because I was in that state of mind where, curiosity. Oh, you're a heroin addict. Cool. Don't be embarrassed. All right, I do other drugs. Let me check out what you're doing. And I watched her for about a month. And then I finally, because, she said it just like any drug addict, I'm going to quit tomorrow. I swear this is my last time. Well, she said that. And for some reason, after a month, I believed her, and I don't know why. So I said, I better try it just once. So I did. And from that point on, when a needle went in my arm, I fell asleep for the next 4.5 years. That's what it seemed like. From that time on, I became hardcore drug addict. I followed her lead. Pretty much just committing petty crimes, trying to support our habit. I got dope sick real fast. And most of the time when I was on drugs, I was on every single drug that you could think of. The only drug that I did not do was PCP, and I have no regrets. So I was a garbage disposal for drugs. Now, obviously, that is one of the risky behaviors. Now, this was 1990, 1991, 92. Now, I'm not talking about my brother yet. All this time, since my brother started being a cocaine dealer at the age of 18, by the time he was, just around 21, he was already doing prison time. He had become addicted to his own stuff, became a complete crackhead. So he's in prison. Family disowned him, but I'm the guy who said, listen, I don't care what happens. You're my brother. I love you to death. So you get out of prison, you need a place to stay, you need clothes on your back, you need food to eat, you call me. And he did. That happened a few times. But The redhead and I had moved to North Hollywood for some reason. I don't know why. We were living up there, and I get a call from my brother who's down in Santa Ana. He's like, brother, I can't take this anymore. I'm living on the streets. I'm miserable. Can you come get me? So I did. I drove from North Hollywood down to Santa Ana. Didn't know where to find him, so my buddy and I were actually driving past garbage cans going, John, you in there? John, hello? And so we found him, brought him home. He looked roughed up. I mean, he had cuts and bruises and lesions, and I just figured he was living a hard life. So, when he came over, he found out that I had been using the needle and that I was on heroin. He did not know this. And he was very upset to hear that I had gone down that path. That lasted 5 minutes. Then he said, oh, you're going to go pick up drugs. Could you get me some too? So I did. I got him his cocaine, and I got me my heroin, and I went back. And since I wasn't dope sick at the time and my brother was terrified of needles, he said, can you hit me? So I did. Injected the drugs right into his blood. Now, up to this point, I'd never shared needles in my life. I mean, I shared needles. You can't help it. You get the guy to get the needle that's wiggling and ready to break off in your veins, but everybody's sharing it. But you use bleach, and I followed all the directions so I could stay safe. But when it came to my brother, well, he's my brother. We're blood. I didn't even think about it. So I hit him, just no bleach, nothing, just rinsed it out with water. Now, mind you, if I had pulled out the plunger and let oxygen in, it would have killed any HIV or any disease inside of it, because it doesn't work well in oxygen. 3 seconds out in the oxygen, it's dead. But I didn't do that. And what I didn't know was my brother had full-blown AIDS. So I injected it right into my arm. And from that point on, well, I can say the rest is history, but there's more to say. So my brother, he ends up getting violated. He goes back to prison. It's months later, and I'm actually cleaning up. I'm stopping the drugs. I'm trying my best. And then one day when I decided, okay, I don't want to quit drugs, because you quit drugs, you stop quit drugs. It's this back and forth. It's this vicious cycle. As soon as you feel better, you want to go get high again. So I was going down to Santa Ana to pick up drugs, and I noticed a little bump in my ear, and my equilibrium seemed to be off. So I didn't think much of it. I went home, I injected my drugs, and I started to get a fever. Now, if you know anything about people who use, intravenous drug users, is that they use a cotton to draw up their drug to get all the impurities out. And sometimes you get a little bit of the fiber of the cotton, and it causes something called cotton fever. That's all I thought I had. So I had the fever that night. It went away the next day. The problem is the next day it came back at about 3 o'clock. And it continued to get worse and worse until I had 103, 104 fever. That was the next night. Then it went away by about 4 o'clock in the morning. The next day I felt great until, that happened again. But other things started to occur. I got thrush in my mouth. And if you know what thrush is, it's a yeast infection. To have it in your mouth means that you get these patchy white spots that you can literally just scrape off, and they're yeasty. It's disgusting. Well, I had that going. My skin started to get these little blotches all over them. It's one of the very first things that usually happens to somebody with HIV. I lost a ton of weight real fast. I couldn't eat. I had night sweats. Later on somebody brought me a paper and they said, man, look at this. And I read down it, and I had 8 out of the 9. There's actually more symptoms now, but at the time, 8 out of the 9 symptoms for HIV. So in an absolute panic, and my family knowing, we went down and I got tested. Now, this is back when it was a 2-week period where you have to wait for your results. And there is nothing worse than waiting 2 weeks to find out whether or not you have a deadly disease. So I chewed my nails for 2 weeks. I got through it. I went down. I got the results, and it was negative. And I jumped up and down for joy. And everybody who knew me was like, oh, it must have been strep throat. It must have been this and that. And I said, I don't care what it was. As long as I'm better now and it's not HIV, because that's a death sentence. Getting HIV, death sentence. This is 1993, mind you. It was just kind of over that hump where they started to make some advancements. Another fun part, my hair fell out. Now that's not a symptom, but if you have a high fever, because I mean the fever was going to 104 point something, almost pushing 105 every night. And, when that happens, from what I understand, it causes your hair follicles, the pores where your hairs are, to go into shock. So I remember one day my girlfriend was yelling at me because I'm sitting out. This is after I've been told that I don't have HIV. I'm sitting there pulling out piles of hairs, and I'm piling them up, and she kept yelling at me, "Stop doing that." I'm like, "I have cancer. I've been radiated. Something's happening. My hair's falling out." It took, from that point, maybe 4 months for me to start gaining my weight, for my hair to start growing back. I looked terrible for quite a while, but I was getting better, and that's all that mattered. So I got to this point where I again decided, and I was actually doing quite well, that I was going to stop drugs. I was clean. I'd been clean long enough not to be sick from the drugs. And then I got a phone call. I was hanging out at friends, got a phone call from my dad, and he said, "Yeah, we just got news from the prison. Your brother has AIDS." And I remember it so clearly because it was like this, and I just dropped the phone. I walked right out of my friend's house, went and sat on the curb middle of the night, and I just thought, I'm dead. I'm a dead man. I know I've got it. So I went back, I got tested, and I came up positive. So what had occurred? Why did I get a negative and then I get a positive? Well, it's called a false negative. When you're first introduced to HIV, or should I say it's introduced to you and you get it in your bloodstream, it really moves fast. But when you're sick and when these things are starting up and you get a blood test, you may not have enough HIV built up in your system to show that it's a positive result. So I got a false negative. This time I got a positive. So let's see here. I remember the day I was on speed, so whacked out of my mind. I had the flu. They told me, "Okay, you're positive, Joe. Here's the deal." Actually, I was so whacked out of my mind, I just didn't care. Because as you see, once I was diagnosed HIV positive, I stopped using heroin and started using speed because I figured I'm never going to sleep again because that's all I did when I was on heroin. But since I'm going to die soon, I never want to sleep again. I want to enjoy as much of my life as I can. Drug addict thinking. By the way, I didn't say this at the very beginning, but I'm a scatterbrain, so it's your job to remember what I say in case I lose track. So let's see here, speed, that, brother. Oh yeah, so I'm getting tested, or they decided to test me again because now you know about T cells, right? Your CD4 count, that is your immune system. That is what is going to keep you healthy. Now they say that the number of 500 to 1500 is where you're a healthy person. So everybody here, unless you have some kind of a compromised immune system, you're going to have 500 to 1500 T cells. That fights off all the crazy exotic things that are out there, and there are. I mean, there's all kinds of weird, like 1 in 100,000 gets kind of cancer, this or that. But your body fights all that off with a healthy immune system, keeps it away. When your immune system starts to drop, your CD4 count goes down and down. It puts you in more risk of actually getting strange diseases and things. And by the way, I mean, I'm sure you know this, HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, compared to AIDS, which is, acquired immunodeficiency virus. There really is no such thing as AIDS. And I'm kind of breaking off my story here to say doctors wish they could take that term back. Because people go, "Oh, AIDS, and they think of it as a specific disease that is going to kill you. And it's not. All AIDS is the HIV virus has completely destroyed your immune system. Your T cells have dropped down to where, now going back to my story, when I first got tested and it came up positive, they said I had 220 T cells. So that's pretty low. I guess at the 200 mark, they give you an AIDS diagnosis. But they said, "Okay, Joe, you're on drugs. You got the flu. I'm sure if we test you again, it's going to go up." And again, going back to the AIDS thing just simply is once your immune system drops so low, you have no defense. Cat scratch, you're cleaning out your fish bowl and you get like toxoplasmosis from it. You're working on your car and you get a little cut, a little grease in there. Just the common cold, all these things, whatever it is, it can kill you. So it's not just wasting disease, it's not just pneumonia, but usually it leads to that point when you're laying in bed and you're dying. So I came back 2 weeks later for my new results, and my new results were that my T cells were 110. I figured at this rate I'll be dead in a week, because I'm doing the math. So they gave me an official AIDS diagnosis. I'm an AIDS patient now. Wow, I got AIDS, so I don't feel like I got AIDS. But yeah, they gave me that AIDS diagnosis, and the way they explained it was they had to draw a line. Even if my T cells went up or down, once they dropped below 200, because they got tired of okay, he's HIV. Okay, wait, no, he's AIDS. Oh, wait, he's HIV. They would go back and forth. They just made a decision. 200 is the line once you drop below it, you're an AIDS patient, period. So what did I do for the next year? From the day I was diagnosed, which was December 21st, 1993, if you do your math, that's over 21 years ago, I figured I was a dead man. I thought to myself, I might have 7 years if I'm lucky, but probably more like 5. So my brother got released from prison. Now we're living together, and I didn't care about anything. I figured I was dead. I'm on drugs. I did drugs more than I'd ever done before because I figured I can kill myself with an overdose. Or I started committing crimes with my brother, robbing drug dealers and doing all kinds of fun stuff where people pull out guns and shoot at you. That was fun. We got shot at once. He was in his girlfriend's Camaro. Boy, she was pissed because in her little spoiler there were bullet holes. But I remember we robbed a drug dealer. We're driving down the alley. We're doing the Starsky and Hutch, and the guy's just shooting at us. And my brother got pissed because I had my face right in the rear, right in the back mirror or back windshield. And I'm like, right here, right here. I wanted to go out my way. I wanted to go out fast. I believed that there was this horrible, awful death, and I thought of it too, as AIDS is a specific disease, and it's going to kill me just this way. So over the next year that I did that, and this was just coincidence, but after a year I started noticing that I was healthier and healthier. So how is it that I'm not getting sick? I don't know. But I did know finally I was so tired after a year of running this kind of life that it was about time I go into rehab. I'd never been in rehab before. And so I entered rehab December 21st, 1994, exactly 1 year to the day that I was diagnosed. I stayed. It's a 28-day program, but I got to stay for 5 months because they got special funding for AIDS patients. So they were greedy and wanted to hold on to me. I was happy because I knew I'm a drug addict. If I leave this place, I might get back on drugs. So I stayed there for 5 months until I got tired of it and left. I did go back to drugs immediately, but then I got out of it, went to a sober living, and that's when I met my now ex-wife, Darth Gemma. She's a Sith Lord. But here was my biggest thing. The day I was diagnosed, I went home, and I remember I was in tears. And the reason why I was in tears, my father was just sitting right out on the front porch waiting to hear the news. And I just was crying. I went up to him, I gave him a hug, and I felt bad that I couldn't give my father a son. I couldn't give him someone to carry on the family name. I felt like I was just such a major failure. And guess what? Just so you know right now, spoiler alert, I've got a 16-year-old son, and he's perfectly healthy. Aww. Yeah. My ex, Darth Gemma, we got together, and she knew my situation because I was speaking in an AA meeting, and I just talked about it openly like I am now, and how she felt was, well, if I'm so confident about it, then she's not afraid of it. And she never was. She got together with me. We took our chances. We had doctor's care, being aware that I'm positive she's not. There's not much they could do, but just hope for the best. And the best did happen. She's negative. We had a negative baby, and he's my pride and joy. And I gave my father a namesake. Not that they get along, because again, my father doesn't want to talk to him because he's not old enough to make any sense. He's not interesting yet. So let's see, where am I on my story? So I had a kid, blah, 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 the now ex-wife. We ended up splitting up. But by this time, see, the drugs, the medical advancements for HIV it was at that peak where they were climbing a hill, and then suddenly they started making progress. Now it's a downhill slope to a cure. The medications they gave me kept me alive and kept me healthy and kept me happy. I hear a lot of pissing and moaning about people who have HIV. Oh, I got to take pills every day. Whoop-de-frickin' do. You know what I have to take today for HIV? Not a handful of pills. I take one pill. One pill. All the pills have been combined into one pill, and I take that every day, and it keeps me healthy. And on top of that, it's now been proven and announced. They did it quietly, though. The drug Truvada prevents HIV from being spread from a positive to a negative person. Officially. They don't make that announcement unless it's absolutely proven. They didn't want it to be this big news, and the reason why was because they were afraid that people would stop using condoms, and they forget this doesn't protect you from syphilis or gonorrhea or herpes or anything else. So it was a one-day announcement, and they just shut up about it. But here's the thing. I've been on it for at least 10 years. So it's built into my system. So I definitely was not infectious. I had a viral load. If you know what a viral load is, it has to do with per volume of blood, how much disease, how much HIV is in that. I've had viral loads where it's 250,000, things like that. But as time went on, it got down to where it's undetectable. They check my blood, they cannot find HIV virus. The only way they can tell is by doing an antibody test. That's the only way they can confirm that I have HIV. So back to my story. I do that. I give you little bits of information. Isn't it impressive? So back to my story, though. When I got out of rehab, it was 1995, before the ex-wife, before the kid and everything. And my brother refused. He got out of prison. He refused. He knew. He refused to take drugs, trying to say that they'll kill you in the long run anyway because they're toxic. And that's a little bit true, but not really, because they've improved them so much. But he, as a crack addict, just kept smoking crack, doing drugs, living on the street, robbing people, going to jail, getting out of jail. This was his life. And then finally he got a stint where it was a 9-year. He never had anything like, multiple years. So he got a 9-year stint for assault with a deadly weapon. And he called me from prison and he said, "Brother, I can't do 9 years. I can't." And lo and behold, and it is true, it's a power of the mind. Rather quickly he went downhill. And I got a call one day from the prison. They said, "Yeah, he's on his way out. Your brother is dying. So if you want to come see him, come now." I hopped on a plane. I got to Vacaville prison. I went in, and, my brother was just like I saw in the videos of AIDS patients. He had wasting disease. He was just skinny as a rail. You could see his bones popping out. He was non-responsive. He couldn't speak, but he could look at me. And the nurse told me, she said, "Yeah, he should be dead by now, but he heard you were coming. We told him, and he waited." So my brother actually waited for me to arrive before he died. I got into that room and I just crawled into bed with him and I hugged him and I told him, "Man, it's okay. It's time to let go. Mom's waiting for you," all that stuff. I had to talk my brother into death. And it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do because he was in my arms. And after about an hour and a half, he died. So, that really screwed me up. That was actually what screwed me up when I got out of rehab and caused me to do more drugs. But again, I saw the error of my way and I got back into a clean and sober life. So now jumping ahead, I've got a 16-year-old son, big pain in the ass, and he acts just like me, and I'm sure he's bipolar. Sure of it. Put it this way, he, in a month, did $1,000 worth of damage to his electronics. I have road rage. I'm on a pill for road rage, believe it or not, because I obsess over it. I'm like, I don't care. You're the nicest people. I could be talking to you, one-on-one. "Hey, you're the greatest person in the world. How you doing?" Right? Put me in a car. I just see the back of your head, and I hate you. I hate you, and as far as I'm concerned, you're all in my way. Get the hell out of the way. Don't drive in the fast lane at 60. I will run you off the road. So they had to put me on a pill for it. My son, on the other hand, has electronic rage. He smashed a $50 Xbox controller because he got angry because he wasn't winning. A little while later, he got angry at his iPad, and his $600 iPad, smashed it up against a wall. And then a short time later, took his $300 iPhone, I don't know if I got the prices right, but smashed that up against the wall. So at that point, I said, guess who's paying for the next one? You are. Yeah, so he started mowing lawns and doing all kinds of work because I told him, man, that's the way it works. I'm not going to buy you new stuff. You're going to destroy it. And I just saw him, he lives with his mother in Ventura. I just saw him over spring break, and I was shocked. He got rid of his Xbox, all of his electronics. He just has his phone now. And I said, why would you do that? He goes, because it makes me angry, and I realize that that's a problem. My son is learning from my mistakes. But when my wife left me, and it wasn't a mutual thing, she just up and left me because I chose to, clean and sober life, but that old fooling yourself, hey, I'm a drug addict. I'm not an alcoholic. So I drank, and I drank with my ex-wife, and that's what destroyed my marriage, was drinking. Because I'm bipolar, and you put alcohol in a bipolar person and they become an insane caveman. And I would break things. I never hurt anybody. I hurt myself. I mean, to give you an idea, I got scars all over my arm and just insanity. And I have no control. I call it Jack, my alter ego, who goes nuts when I get there. But I hid away in a room for about 10 years. I got a job. I was functional. They thought I was crazy. My boss just called me his special child. I got away with murder. Usually they fire people for what I did, but not me. Kicking chairs across the room and swearing and yelling at my boss. But, they still love me because I did a good job. I think I'm losing myself now. But anyway, work, bipolar, my son. So my son is he's in the newspaper, put it that way. I keep flipping out the newspaper articles of the crazy things he does, and I just laugh at it. I can't help it. I'm like, who am I to say bad son? I did the same thing. I just tell him, learn from my examples. So where I am now today with a healthy son, a healthy ex-wife, and my fiance, who we are trying to have a baby. We got about 1 year left. I'm 45 years old, and we figure, I don't know, I might be shooting blanks. We've been trying for a year. It's not her, it's me. And that might be I don't know, that might be a gift from God, that might be a curse. I don't know which. And she's going to watch this video, so she's going to get pissed at me. I really want a baby, honey. But basically, that being my story, is that I stopped the drinking. I got back into the program about 3.5 years ago. And it's funny, when you turn 40, they say, oh, yeah, the midlife crisis. I went through a little midlife crisis, but really what it's about is you start to realize that you may have less time ahead of you than you have behind you, and you start to regret. I didn't regret anything in my life, ever, until I turned 40. And then I started regretting everything. Oh, I could have taken this path. I could have done this. I could have done that. But the way I look at it and the way I stay positive about it is, if I wore blue socks instead of black socks one day when I went out, the butterfly effect, maybe I wouldn't have my son. And, he's the most important thing to me. So the fact is, I wouldn't change a thing about my life. I love my life the way it is. And I say this, if anybody here, at your own privacy, if you're afflicted with one of these STDs or diseases, just like me, maybe you're HIV positive. Maybe you have herpes. Maybe you have hep. Maybe you have diabetes. Well, out of those, if I were given a choice right now today, hey, Joe, tell you what, we can take away your HIV, completely cure you, but in that place we have to put herpes 1 or 2, hepatitis B or C, or diabetes. Which would you want? I'll stay with the HIV. Because I take a pill a day and I'm perfectly healthy. And as I've been told by the doctor, with now the advancements that we are at, a cure is around the corner. A cure is definitely around the corner. They have made an announcement by 2020 that they expect a cure. But in the meantime, where am I? What's going on? What's going on with the medical stuff? This is where I'm going to get into some of the facts. And I'm just going to ramble them off in different things. They have, and I just found out about this. Every time I do this class, I have to cram because things change so quickly. I did not know If any of you are having a relationship with somebody who may be HIV positive or is HIV positive, and maybe they're like me, they're on, I'm on Triamec now, same damn thing. I'm taking a pill that builds up the resistance of my body, keeps my HIV down, and makes me very non-infectious. But there's always that minute chance. Well, Truvada has been approved, and over the last year, it's only been in the last year they've announced this, that it is called PrEP, P-R-E-P, and that is pre-exposure prophylaxis, which means that you can go to the doctor, you can have them prescribe you under the right conditions if you qualify this drug, which you take one pill every day. It takes about 20 days to build up the proper resistance in your system, and then you cannot get HIV from an HIV positive person. So pretty interesting. As a matter of fact, they just did a research in Bangkok because they have a lot of drug users there, and they've come up Treva, I didn't remember the name, but it's another antiviral therapy, and they found that if they give this to the drug addicts, that it builds up the resistance, so when they're shooting drugs, they can't get it like I did. So we're now at precautionary prevention. We have prevention if you're smart. And you take these drugs, or if let me back up. Be smart, use a condom, get tested. How's that? My most important lesson to be expressed to you, and I'm sure you've heard it 100 times. Get tested. How many people here have been tested any time in their lives? Okay, that's good. Now, when everybody's hand raises, we're going to have a perfect world, because everybody should get tested. Don't be afraid of it. It is not a deadly disease. It's not going to kill you anymore. It's a livable disease. It's treatable like diabetes. You take a pill a day. It keeps you healthy. And as it stands right now, they said you can live out practically a normal life. There's about a 5-year, what my doctor told me was, well, if this guy lived to be 90 and he didn't have it, you're going to live to be 85. So it's good to know. So don't let the fear of. But granted, there's the stigma. And since this is, what's the name of this class exactly? AIDS in Society. I didn't say AIDS in America. Because I know it's everywhere. With AIDS in society, what have I had to go through with stigma? I will tell you that the day I was diagnosed, I hopped on the phone, I called every single person that I knew, and I told them that I was positive. Don't know why. Just felt the need to let everybody know, yeah, this is a situation. My friends did not shun me. Not for that. They shunned me because I was still on drugs, and I had friends come up to me and say, man, I don't want to watch you die. I don't want to be your friend. I don't want to watch you die. They didn't mean HIV or AIDS. They meant drugs. So when I clean that up, everybody's my friend. Nobody has a problem with it. And the reason why nobody has a problem with it is because they know I don't have a problem with it. I'm comfortable. I know all the facts when it comes to, you can't get it from kissing. You can't get it from holding hands. You can't get it from, sharing dishes and so on. I've got a whole bunch of notes I wrote this morning. I'm not going to look at one of them, but it helped me to look, write them all down. Real quick, did you know that 35 states have laws against an HIV positive person having sex with an HIV negative person? Whether I use a condom or not, I'm guilty of a misdemeanor. So let me count. Let's see here. We've been together for, I think that would be about 365. Yeah, so right now I'm probably at about, 400 misdemeanors and counting. We have a very active sexual life. But like I said, I've got lots of facts. But how about, and please, I will pick on you. I will make you ask me a question. At this point, I would like to, what are we looking at? What time does this go till? 10:45. Oh, cool. We got a half an hour. I think that was perfect timing to my story. First of all, does anybody have a question about my story, me personally? Come on. Just think of a question, any question. Yes, thank you.
Do you think if you're your stepdad, I guess, that came.
Step dork is the proper term.
That life, would you not have gone into drugs?
What you're saying is, if he wasn't involved and my mom didn't commit suicide, that catalyst, who's to say? You know, I'm the guy who everything happens to. I joke around, I say I'm 1 out of 4. 1 out of 4 people have erectile dysfunction. Well, hi, I'm 1 out of 4. That's what I call my name. I mean, anything that's 1 out of 4, I'm 1 out of 4. So I don't know, but I was using drugs. I was using alcohol, but what I considered, I don't know if you can actually consider that to be socially or experimentally. But yeah, you know, I mean, I think my path would have been much different if my mom didn't off herself. My brother's path would have been different. But truth be told, again, my mother didn't want to be here. You know, you only learn after the fact, when it's too late, like at her memorial service, that she was suicidal since she was 18. She grew up in foster care because both her parents were alcoholics. My grandmother was a raging whore, a drug addict and now an alcoholic. She loved the sailors. She was crazy as a loon, redhead. And I guess about the time she shot my grandfather in the leg with a shotgun and all that going on, you know, my grandfather was great, but she was crazy. Anyway, she got put into foster care, and I can't say what happened to her. You hear horror stories about foster care. It could just be about her parents and her loss. I don't know, but that stuck with her whole life. So, you know, I find out these things. So again, it's hard to say, but I would say there would have been, you know, like I said, the butterfly effect or changing the timeline. You know, so if my mother did not kill herself, I certainly would be somewhere else, but I wouldn't have my son. And since my mother did not want to be on this earth, you know, God bless her. You know, I'm not religious. I don't think she's burning in some hell. I don't believe in heaven and hell. I just believe that, you know, life goes on and on beyond this world and so on. So I'm not afraid of death. You know, I'm pissed at her. You know, anybody be pissed at somebody, it's the most selfish thing that you can do is kill yourself. But I know she was in so much pain that she just couldn't see any out, and she couldn't see living another day. And so that is my life, you know, just like my brother dying. You know, I hear people say, oh, it's so tragic. My life is so normal. Everybody's got a tragic story. You know, I'm not the only one. It just, my tragic story led me into the world of HIV and AIDS. Next question. Yes, ma'am.
At what age did you decide you were HIV positive, and how did he take you?
Thank you. That's a great one. I didn't tell him until he was 13. I told my now ex-wife. I have to say that. I should just say my ex-wife. I told my ex-wife, you know, when we were together, I said, there's just no need. No need. You know, let him grow up. Let him be fine. I'm fine. There's no need to concern him. But my son and I, of course, are very, very close. He loves me to death. I love him to death. And one day I just came about. I drove the truck up into the carport. We're home, and I just stopped, and I said, son, I got something to tell you. And I go, I'm HIV positive. And he looked at me like he was terrified. What? You know, and I had to explain to him. I had to sit and explain, it's all okay. Everything's okay. He was embarrassed because he tells AIDS jokes all the time. And I'm the one going, I'm the one with the disease. Tell all your jokes. I tell jokes. I don't care. It's not, is it too sensitive? No. Tell me a joke. You got a good AIDS joke? Tell me, because I love them. So, but since then, my son has completely grown used to the idea. He doesn't talk about it. He doesn't tell his friends. He doesn't go around, you know, oh, my dad's, you know, got HIV. He just simply has accepted it. And again, it all has to do with the confidence of the individual. There are individuals out there who are just, poor me, poor me, poor me. And I don't mean to make fun of them, but damn it, the best thing is your mind. You know, I do believe that you can heal yourself with your mind. You can stay healthy with your mind. You know, I've watched people who were diagnosed with cancer who were dead in 6 weeks. They were perfectly healthy because their mind told them, I give up. My brother, he gave up. Me, I made that decision when I was 25. I said, I'm not giving up. So my son took it well, I should say, and he's totally normal with it now. He's not afraid of if I get a cut. I've educated him in every way to where it's like, cool. Thank you for asking that question because that was on my mind. All right, next question. Come on. Yes.
This is probably not nothing to do with your HIV status, but what did your son in the newspaper doing?
Let's see here. Vandalism. That was one. Let's see here. Two. My favorite one was he took his airsoft pellet rifle that looks like an M16, and of course I bought it for him. And he decided to snipe all the kids from the balcony at the bus stop waiting to go to school. And somebody called the police and said that he has a weapon. And of course all the police and helicopters came in. And that made the newspaper. When I drove up there to visit and I found out, I just laughed hysterically. I'm sorry, I'm just that guy. I was like, oh, you know what? Where's the news? I said, go down right now and get me a copy of that newspaper. I'm going to clip that out and put it on my wall. And I did. And I don't know. My son has his own problems. You know, he's gotten drug out of school, drunk as a skunk. You know, he's tried drugs. He's a big pothead now. My ex and I agreed if pot's the worst thing that he does, then we're okay with it. I personally, MedCard, hi, I smoke pot. I'm not a pothead, but I do occasionally smoke it. It does relieve pain. It helps me with my appetite. Helps me with my sleep. My sleep patterns, appetite, everything else are screwed up. I'm not okay in those departments. I'm still perfectly healthy, but it does help. I'm not telling anybody here that you should go out and smoke pot. But you can do it if you want. That's your business. If you have insomnia because you stay up all night and play, Xbox and drink Jolt Cola, and then go to the doctor and say, I suffer from insomnia, and they prescribe it to you, good for you. Good for you. Question? Yes, ma'am.
So did your ex-wife used to do drugs or anything too?
Oh, God, yeah. She was looking at 7 years in prison for drug use, assault. I know how to pick them. No, but she was a sweetheart when I met her. She was in Tarzana. Her daughter, my stepdaughter, was taken away at a very young age from her when this all happened. And it just so happened that that's where I was speaking in Tarzana. It was an all-women's thing, and I was invited to speak. And I guess that's where she fell madly in love with me. She was introducing her, my stepdaughter. This is your new daddy. This is before we really went out, so that was odd. But yeah, she was just like me, punk rock. Woo! I grew up in the 80s punk rock scene, so did she. And she did drugs and she liked cocaine, and but that's what got her into trouble. But from there, she did everything that she had to do. When we got together, and then 2 years later got married. Let's see, I went out with 1 year. The next year I did the exact same date, and where I had first kissed her is where I proposed on the pier over in Seal Beach. I tried to keep it romantic. And then 2 years later, on the same day, by the way, I'm a guy, I can't remember things, so I made sure that the first time that we met on our first date was June 17th. When I proposed to her, it was June 17th, and when we got married, it was June 17th. And when I divorced her, I couldn't control that, but I really begged her, could you make it June 17th? So, I like this, yes.
You had mentioned that given the choice to have HIV or a number of others, would you say bipolar is harder to deal with than the HIV?
Yeah, I have been a wreck my entire life because of bipolar, and I'm also an advocate for mental health awareness. I've been on workman's comp for 2 years, and I've had to change my career, and so I've been writing like a madman. But what I found is it's also a stigma with mental illness. People think, oh no, you can get over it. Just don't do that. I like that. Just don't do it. Just stop that behavior. It's like, are you out of your mind? You can't. It's a mental illness. If I can have a disease in my skin, in my heart, my lungs, my liver, my kidneys, why can't I have a disease in my brain which makes me cuckoo? And, my fiance, her ex-husband's name's Joe. She has Joe tattooed here, so she had to find another Joe. And by the way, I just want to let you know that she was my high school sweetheart when I joined the Army. And I haven't seen her in 27 years until we had a reunion. And when I saw her again, we were back in each other's lap laughing, and we're together again. It's kind of that love story. And I mean, I'm madly in love with her. She is my soulmate. So, what was the question?
You answered it, bipolar.
Did I? Okay, yeah, bipolar. Bipolar is, by the way, I'm on medication now. Last time I saw it, I was not on medication. Yeah, exactly. I was all over the place and couldn't remember one word that I said. I had such short-term memory. And just so you know, on HIV and AIDS, they found that when people get to be my age, 45 up to 50 and on, that 36% of HIV patients start to lose cognitive abilities and memory, compared to 16% of people without HIV. And I'd like to think that's why I can't remember things, right? Don't give me your name, because it's going to, and I literally have to go, I'm sorry, what's your name? Yes,
Penny.
Penny. I would have to go Penny. I'd sit there walking around Penny. Yeah, and then I would end up calling you Lenny or something. Yeah, so I do have a problem with my memory, but that also could be my medical marijuana. You never know. You never know. So, you had a question.
What has been the worst reaction you've had from a person when you told them that you were HIV positive?
Worst reaction. That would have been still when it was misunderstood in the early 90s. I smoked off a crack pipe. No, it wasn't a crack pipe. It was a speed pipe. These people, and then he came back and just, why didn't you tell me? You should have told me. And blah blah blah. He wanted to start a fight with me. I had another guy who was in prison. He was, he's a 3-striker. He's doing life now. But his reaction was, because he thought I mouthed off to him on the phone, so he came over to, I'm going to kill you. And then when he walked in the room, he looked at me, and I didn't know until later, he was terrified of getting HIV or AIDS. So he picked up a fan and stood across the room threatening me, but wouldn't come within 12 feet of me. So I was like, whatever. I really haven't had too many bad reactions. I've had people who, when I mention it, they kind of ignore me and don't want to shake my hand or things like that. I'm fine with that. Because again, with the bipolar comes the attitude of I don't care. That's been my favorite saying. I don't care. You're the one with the problem. I'm sorry that you're ignorant, that you're fearful, and, it must suck living in fear. Me, I'm perfectly open, not afraid of anything, and if you need education, I will educate you. That's my whole attitude. Yes.
So you're saying that with the bipolar, people tell you just don't get over it, don't do it. How do you deal with that? Because I suffer from depression. My dad's always well, just don't, and it's not something I can just not do. So how do you deal with that?
Oh, real simple. Show me how. That's all. Oh, you've got the answer? Show me how. I've had people in the program, AA. I do AA, but it gets a little culty. And I have people saying, oh, no, you don't need to take pills. You don't need to see psychiatrists. You don't need this. All your answers are in the book. Okay, I had an old friend who tried that argument. We were on speeding up all night arguing over it because I'm more of a pagan, if you will. I'm talking about the oak god. And the oak god is making fun of, into the Bible. All your answers are in the Bible. You're reading all this dark and weird stuff. I went through a dark phase. I read all the satanic Bible, the satanic rituals. Not that I was practicing them. I was just interested to see what they were about. Necronomicon and so on. And he told me everything is in the book, and then I caught him finally. I was like, so what you're saying is if I get a welding job and I need to learn how to weld, it's in the Bible. Well, no, that's different. Really? Okay, so what about the OK Corral in history? Is that going to be in the Bible? And he goes, yes. Really? Well, I mean, no. And it's like, don't try to tell me. You're not doctors. Let the doctors decide. And it does say that in the big book of AA, is that we are not doctors. So, there are some hardcore people in the group of AA who say, no drugs, nothing. Oh, you're HIV positive, you shouldn't take those drugs. It's like stupid thinking of stupid people who have no knowledge of what they're talking about. And trust me, there's many out there. I have the feeling you're all smart people because you're in class, big, beautiful brains. But there are people out there who are just as ignorant as they come, and I just smile at them. Whatever. So on the bipolar or depression, can't be considered bipolar. I was crazy forever, and they kept giving me drugs. But what was finally discovered was I had a psychiatrist said, I can't believe nobody put you on a mood stabilizer. She put me on it, and within a week, I already saw it. I was calming down. I stopped. I had anxiety attacks so bad that I was like this and freaking out, and all that stopped. I don't worry. I don't sit there, feeling guilty all the time or stressed. I just feel normal. And that's what I've always wanted. So, you're looking at a guy who only for the last year or so has been normal out of his entire life. Questions? We got 15 minutes, man. Don't make me sit up here and tell you jokes, because I suck at jokes.
You said now you're down to just 1 pill a day?
Yeah.
How long have you just been taking 1 pill a day?
That just started. It's a new pill called Triamec. And again, but what it was is, okay, I used to take a whole bunch of pills. Then they got it down to it was 4 pills, where what they do is they combine the pills into 1 pill. And so I was down to 4 pills, then they got it down to 3 pills, then they got it down to 2 pills, and then finally everything I need is in 1 pill. So if you take vitamins in the morning, it's just, I don't even think about being HIV positive. I'm doing this right now, so it's kind of in my face. But, I take all my medications. I take 100 medications because I got bad back, bad neck. I just had shoulder surgery. I just had something removed from the back of my neck. On top of the depression, I take Lexapro for depression. I mean, all these drugs for different reasons, including my vitamins. But I take 1 pill for HIV. Just add it into the group, throw it in my mouth, and I can go on with my day and not think about it and not worry about being contagious to other people. You're at the highest level of contagion if you don't know you have it, or if you have it and you don't take drugs. And they say on average, it's roughly about 7 years, I brought this up last time, and I want to show you the ignorance of the drug or of the disease. Tommy Gun, what's his last name? Anybody seen Rocky V? Okay, there was the guy that he fought, the white guy, who he trained and ended up street fighting at the end. His name was Tommy Gun Morrison, I think. Well, he stopped. He was a real boxer. He stopped boxing, or they stopped him because he was found to be HIV positive. He, from that day, refused to believe. He didn't even believe HIV, but, he fought and fought. It doesn't exist. It's just a fantasy thing. He didn't take medications for it. And I think he lasted 16, 17 years. And then he finally died. He just died like in the last year. And still his widow is fighting, saying, no, he did not die of AIDS. Yes, he did. But that's the ignorance of people who get it. Some people just refuse to believe that it even exists. Hold on one second. Yes?
How often do you have to go to your doctor now to check your T cells?
About once every 4 months. Yeah, about 3 times a year. And I got a doctor who loves to call me he's a doctor who will think, great news, Joe. Yeah, your labs just came back in, and your liver's good, and your kidneys are good, and your lungs are good, and this is good, and that's good, and good. And I'm like, really? You bothered to call and tell me that? Call me when something's wrong. Thank you. So, he's a great doctor, and everything has been going well. And if you've heard of the Berlin patient, I've got it in here somewhere. Oh, by the way, I go to the health department before these because I just saw my doctor. And I pick up the bill with that because I bring lots and lots of stuff. It's got all kinds of great information. The big fights now are about the laws of HIV and how they need to bring them back. Like I told you, have sex with somebody and you're guilty of a misdemeanor. It's ridiculous. They go over that, the PrEP, and then also pretty much the preventative, that I talked about. So just so you know, I'm going to leave these up here. Feel free to look through them or just ignore them. I don't care which. But that's for you. Could you repeat your question one more time so I made sure that I answered it correctly?
Just how often do you have to see your doctor and your T cells? Like, you have to test every 4 months?
My T cells are 850 and I am undetectable. And I am healthy as a horse, if horses are healthy. Okay. I tell you what, I'm going to stop in 5 minutes, giving you that last 5 minutes to do whatever the hell it is you people do. So could you please ask me another question? As you see, my questions, the answers take at least 5 minutes, so I only need one more. Yes?
How do you know our professor? How
do you know? Well, we used to date. No, I met her. Come on, she's hot stuff. We dig each other. It's fun. Through the CARE program. made contact with somebody because I was looking through St. Mary's Hospital. They give classes. I enjoy doing this. I've done it for Planned Parenthood. I've done it for different school districts. I do it for anybody who will listen to me speak. And the reason why is because I think that HIV is a huge, people need to be educated and know. And I'm going to get to, I started on the Berlin patient. Don't let me forget that. But basically I called, he said, well, we don't have anything going on now, but let me recommend someone. And he basically gave me the number so I could introduce myself to Carol. And ever since then, it's been great. I mean, last year they were kind of busy with World AIDS Day or whatever, so I didn't come down to speak, but this is my third time. So thank you for asking. And let me tell you about the Berlin patient. Is anybody here aware that they have cured people with HIV? Okay. Not a lot of people. I mean, babies, things like that, because they carry their mother's immune system for 18 months. If they put them on certain drugs and whatever, they kick it. But yeah, this just happened to be an accidental. I think he had lymphoid cancer. Thank you. And the way that they had to go about treating him and whatnot, and injecting, I knew it 2 years ago when I'd done this. But basically what it was the treatment that he did for this cancer. It not only cured the cancer, but lo and behold, it cured the HIV. And to this date, he's still HIV negative. What they found was that the donor for the bone marrow transplant that he needed, the donor had a mutated gene, and they call it the delta 32 gene. And so 2 men, both from the same donor, same thing happened. Currently, they're saying there's only 1 survivor, so I don't know if the other eventually succumbed to maybe the cancer came back or whatever, but he was HIV negative, and so was the Berlin patient. They had another gentleman had the exact same procedure, also HIV positive, but he did not have the delta 32 gene, that same donor. He died. So that just means that they're on the road to a cure. And I've always said 4 or 5 years, I think they're going to have it cured, and they say 2020. So I'm not saying go out there and act crazy and do whatever. I'm just saying that take your precautions. Do everything you're supposed to do, all the basics you've learned here. Don't take chances just because I said, hey, willy-nilly, I said preventative pills, all that stuff. I'm just saying that this is the information that's out there and that this is not the disease that it used to be. And I think that's a good ending. So thank you very much for letting me speak. You guys have been great, a lot more fun than the last classes. They were all deers in a headlight. All right, cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you to you.
Thank you.
All right. So remember, there's a whole bunch of stuff here. I'm sorry I tagged some of it during my research. But please just grab them. You're going to find some interesting things. Or makes for great bathroom reading. There you go. I guess you can just tear out the yellow tabs. This is lots of pamphlets. It's good for your class if you want to keep learning. Some people take these classes just because they have to, but other people actually want to learn, want to know, or know somebody who has HIV. We get hugs now. I love you.
Did you get your stuff put in?
I'm sorry, a few of those are on Hep C, but it doesn't matter. They still have articles about HIV. Alright, let me get my computer out of your way. Stop tape and how do I do it? To touch it?